In 1815, an era that had reshaped Europe came to an end. With Napoleon's defeat, a new order began to emerge across the continent. But for Italy, the future remained uncertain. Because Europe's leaders were about to decide Italy's future once again. In 1815, Europe's most powerful nations gathered in Vienna. Their goal was to build a new order after Napoleon. Italy's future was also being reshaped during these meetings. But the decisions would not create a united Italy. After the Congress of Vienna, Italy was divided into small states once again. Piedmont, the Papal States, and the Kingdom of the Two Sicilies controlled different parts of the peninsula. Even people speaking the same language continued living under different borders. The dream of a united Italy still seemed distant, but it would not remain that way forever. One of the biggest winners of the Congress of Vienna was Austria. Important regions of northern Italy came under direct Austrian control. Milan and Venice were now governed from Vienna. As foreign rule expanded, Italian nationalism quietly began to grow. Many Italians were beginning to see themselves as part of one nation rather than separate states. Writers and thinkers began spreading the idea of a shared language and history. For the first time, a powerful question emerged. Why not one Italy? This idea would soon grow into a movement. One of the first movements behind this cause was a secret society known as the Carbon. Its members secretly swore oaths and organized against Austrian influence. They quickly gained supporters across many parts of Italy. Soon, they would try to turn their ideas into action. In 1820, the first major spark appeared in Naples. Carbonari members mobilized the people by demanding constitutional reforms. Faced with mounting pressure, the king was forced to back down. For a moment, it seemed that change was possible. But the leaders in Vienna watched these events with growing concern. Austria moved quickly to prevent the revolts from spreading. The inexperienced rebels struggled against a professional army. The uprising was crushed, but the ideas survived. The events in Naples quickly spread to Piedmont. Military officers and reformers began pushing for change. Some were no longer dreaming of reform alone, but of a united Italy. But once again, Austria was preparing to intervene. In the spring of 1821, the Austrian army moved once again. The rebels were outmatched in both numbers and experience. The resistance quickly began to collapse. Once again, hopes for change had been postponed. After the uprisings, a harsh period of repression began. Many revolutionaries were arrested or imprisoned. Others left Italy and began lives in exile. But those forced into exile had no intention of giving up the struggle. At this moment, a new figure began to emerge. Giuseppe Mazzini. Italy should not only be free, but united. He wanted to transform nationalism into a movement of the people. Soon, his ideas would echo across the entire peninsula. In 1831, Mazzini founded the Young Italy movement. The goal was clear: a free, united and independent Italy. The ideas began crossing borders. Young people were joining the cause. For the first time, the dream of a united Italy was reaching the masses. Mazzini's call soon began turning into action. Throughout the 1830s, several uprisings erupted across Italy. But most of these revolts were poorly prepared and quickly crushed. Defeats continued, but the idea of unification could no longer be stopped. Each new uprising pushed Austria to impose even harsher measures. Secret societies were hunted down and meetings were broken apart. Hundreds of nationalists were imprisoned or forced into exile. But the greater the repression, the stronger the resistance became. During the 1830s and 1840s, Europe was changing rapidly. New ideas were crossing borders faster than ever before. Demands for liberty, constitutions, and nationalism were rising everywhere. Italy too was beginning to feel the approach of a great storm. In 1848, Europe erupted once again. The revolutionary wave quickly spread across the continent. Italian nationalists believed this was the opportunity they had been waiting for. Soon, the entire peninsula would be shaken by uprisings. In March 1848, the first major explosion came in Milan. After days of fighting, Austrian forces withdrew from the city. Soon afterward, Venice also rose against Austrian rule. For the first time, unification seemed like a real possibility. King Charles Albert of Piedmont decided he could wait no longer. He sent his army to fight against Austria. Many Italians believed this war would begin the path to unification. But Austria was far from accepting defeat. By 1849, the first attempt at unification had suffered a major setback. Austria regained control of most of the territories it had lost. But the nationalism that had grown for decades could no longer be reversed. A united Italy had not yet been born. But the struggle was only beginning. The revolutions of 1848 had failed, but the ideas survived. A new generation refused to abandon the dream of a united Italy. This time, attention began turning toward the Kingdom of Piedmont. Soon, a new leader would emerge and change the course of the unification struggle. After 1849, many revolutions collapsed, but Piedmont remained standing. King Victor Emmanuel II chose to preserve constitutional government. This turned Piedmont into the natural center of Italian nationalism. The hope of unification would now rely on state power rather than secret societies. The idea of unity was growing, yet Italy remained divided into many separate states. In the north, Lombardy and Venice remained under Austrian control. At the center stood the Papal States. The Pope had no desire to lose his political power. The Kingdom of the Two Sicilies was equally determined to preserve its rule. The road to unification would be far more difficult than it seemed. By the 1850s, Italy was still divided. But the struggle no longer rested solely on the shoulders of revolutionaries. Soon, three men would change the course of history: Cavour, Victor, Emmanuel, and Garibaldi. A united Italy was still a dream, but the day that dream would become reality was no longer far away. The story of Italian unification continues. Don't forget to subscribe to Chronology of Existence.